Hi, third graders. It's me, Miss Roby. As you can see, I do have a happy birthday hat on, and I have a happy birthday banner behind me because today is Michigan's birthday. And what better way to celebrate Michigan's big day than to finally wrapping up what has been a long journey of Michigan's early history. And so we're going to kind of review exactly what we talked a little bit about and also continue our story for today. So before we keep going, we need to review exactly what did Michigan need to become a state and how did we end up being here 184 years later as a state in the United States. So remember, we were talking about how a state needed to have about 60,000 people living in it. And in early Michigan history, we learned that this wasn't so easy. We had a lot of issues happening, including that there was a bad survey, so people didn't want to come here. We also learned that it was very challenging. Thinking back those pioneers, it was very hard to travel to get people in Michigan. We did learn that things like the Erie Canal started to come up to help people travel to Michigan by boat a little bit quicker and easier. And we have other inventions that make things a little bit easier as well. We also learned that we needed a governor. Now, at this point of history we left off, we had Lewis Cass as our first governor. But today we're going to be introducing our first technical state governor, and we're going to be learning about where he picks off from Lewis Cass, where he kind of picks off. We also know that because we needed a governor, we also needed a state constitution in place. And a constitution, just like the United States has a constitution, states have constitutions as well. And they end up sharing. All right, so we also learned that we needed a constitution. And so just like the United States has a constitution, we have a constitution as a state. And so a constitution is just a written plan of government. It's basically like a how-to manual on how to run the government and those how do we select leaders and how do we make those laws. So we needed to create a constitution. And so 1835, we end up finding out in the future that Stevens T. Mason, who takes over as governor, ends up adopting a state constitution. So that kind of checks off our box. And we're going to learn more about Stephen T. Mason a little bit later on in this. We also had one last thing we had to solve before we became a state. And that was we were actually fighting with Ohio. That's right. Way back, even in the 1800s, Michigan and Ohio were not friends, and it had nothing to do with football. And we were fighting over the Toledo Strip, which I'm going to share with you today what that was as well. So these are really those big problems we were trying to solve. We needed people to come and live here. We needed a governor. We needed a constitution in place, which, as I just told you, we did that in 1835. And we had to solve this Toledo Strip problem. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So, like I mentioned, Lewis Cass was our first territorial governor. So he was in charge of Michigan before it was a state. But at this point, Lewis Cass was a little bit too old, and he was getting pretty sick, so they decided to pass the torch on to another governor. And in 1831, this governor's name was Stevens T. Mason, and you can actually see his picture right here. And Stevens T. Mason, he was actually pretty young for a governor back in this time frame, so they called him the boy governor, believe it or not, and that was his nickname. And then so in 1834, because he knew we needed 60,000 people to be considered a state, and he knew Lewis Cass, our previous governor, worked really hard to redo that survey that said Michigan was not a good place for farming. He worked on that. He knew that with the help of the Erie Canal and other things, people were traveling to Michigan a little bit more easier. And so he's like, you know what? I'm going to see, do we have enough people to become a state? So he ordered what they call a consensus, or a counting of people in the area. So they do these every 10 years in the United States, but they decided to count the people. So when they did this census, they ended up finding that 85,000 people lived in the area, which is well over the 60,000 that we needed to become a state. So we were able to check off that item off of our box. And so Stevens T. Mason, like I said, he helps become really that first official governor following Lewis Cass's death. So open up right now to page 27, and we're actually going to learn a little bit more about Stevens T. Mason. So you're going to see on page 27 here, right? And hopefully you have that open in your packet. And if you need more time, go ahead and hit pause. You can do that. All right. So if you actually look here in our packet on page 27, you're going to see a informational article about Stevens T. Mason and that boy governor. And then you're going to answer 3 questions about what he is and what did he help do for Michigan. So right now, go ahead and do that and hit pause. All right, so hopefully you finished that page 27. And if you need more time, go ahead and do that. You're more than welcome to go back and redo that item there. And so right now, I'm going to actually continue. So we know that we needed over 60,000 people, and we got that. We also know that we needed a governor, which, you know, Stevens T. Mason's now the governor. He adopted a constitution, right? Based on our article, he helped draft that constitution for the state of Michigan. And now we just have one more problem we have to solve before we can officially become a state. And that was our fight over the Toledo Strip. We were fighting with Ohio. So what is the Toledo Strip? So the Toledo Strip was a small piece of land near the mouth of the Maumee River, okay, which is actually Toledo, Ohio. So if you've ever been in Toledo, the Maumee River flows right through it, and we were fighting over that land, believe it or not. Because back in this time, rivers and waterways were very important because you could travel quicker, right? So that's why they were really fighting over that land. So Michigan here said, oh, this little strip of land, you can see it here on Miss Roby's sheet here, that's ours. And Ohio was like, no, that's our land. And this was very valuable because, like I said, that's the way that you're shipping your goods. People are traveling. And so Congress was really upset because both of us were fighting with each other. Ohio was fighting over that same piece. Michigan was fighting over it. And they said, you know what? You're not going to be a state until you solve this problem. And so they both were very stubborn. They both didn't want to give up the land. So they started what is known as the Toledo War, and they were fighting over Toledo, this little tiny piece of land. And so right now I want for you to go ahead, you can actually hit pause on my video, and I want you to learn about that Toledo War and the statehood. So this is a really great video. You can check it out in our slide. So you can't play it in my video, but you can play it in your slideshow. So go ahead and do that now. All right, so hopefully you enjoyed that video. You were able to get a little insight into this Toledo War. And so how did they end up solving this problem as a win-win, right? Using habit 4 in our Leader in Me habits, and really compromise with one another to fix this problem. Well, they came up with a good idea, and the federal government actually came in, and the United States said, hey, we'll help you solve this problem. So they just said, here's the deal. Ohio, you can keep the Toledo Strip. Okay, so this little tiny piece of land in Toledo, it can be yours, Ohio. It's not a big deal. But Michigan, in return of giving up the Toledo Strip in that little tiny place in Ohio, they would get the western part of the Upper Peninsula. That was actually never a part of the Michigan Territory. So back then, if you actually look, okay, this little section, we had the top little tiny part of the Upper Peninsula here, and we had the Lower Peninsula. But back then, all of this space up here, right, was actually, it belonged to different territory. It didn't belong to Michigan. So the United States government said, hey, you give up Toledo, this little tiny red piece, and we'll give you this green area of the western part of the Upper Peninsula. So we got the rest of the Upper Peninsula by giving up Toledo, right? I like to think of that as kind of a solution to our problem, right? And, I actually think we got the better end of the deal there now, looking back at it. So the Upper Peninsula is always so beautiful. So that was kind of the win-win. They said, you get this piece of land and you get this piece of land, and we're all going to end up happy here. So they ended up being pretty excited about that. And in 1836, they finally resolved the problem. So Michigan got the Upper Peninsula and Ohio got Toledo. And we came up with that great solution in 1836. So right now, what I want for you to do, you are going to need crayons for this next page. So you're going to need a blue, red, green, and yellow crayon or a colored pencil. And I would like for you to complete page 26 in your packet. So you're actually going to read our section here. And hopefully you were paying attention. If you're not, you can always rewind our video. That's okay. But you're going to end up coloring the sections by following our directions here up at top. So you're going to hear the directions and see them. And you're going to color those in our map here on page 26. So go ahead and hit pause and do that now. So with all that in mind, right, we found that Michigan had over 60,000 people. We developed a constitution and we had a governor, and we finally solved the Toledo Strip problem. And so in 1837, Michigan became a state on January 26th. So today's date exactly. So yay! So happy birthday, Michigan. You are now officially a state and have been for 184 years. So congratulations, Michigan, and congratulations, third graders, because you just celebrated Michigan's early history. So Michigan became a state in 1837 on today. So for the rest of your lesson, make sure that you go ahead and upload on that last slide in our slideshow, pages 26, which was about Stevens T. Mason, and page 27, that Toledo Strip problem. All right, guys, I enjoyed celebrating with you. And don't forget, on Thursday, we're going to have a little birthday party for Michigan. So I will see you all at our wrap-up. Have a great day, guys. Bye.